Good afternoon, Pathvi ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible to you?
Good afternoon.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon to Sergeant R. Admiral V.K. Singh. Sir, am I audible to you? Good afternoon, Dr. Indu.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
yes, clearly.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very good afternoon, Singh sir. Good afternoon, Indu ma'am. This is Dr. Sushma Guleria from National Institute of Disaster Management. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Sushma.
Good afternoon, sir. Hi, good afternoon, Parthvi. How are you?
I guess Dr. Angela will be joining us soon. Patvi ma'am.
That's fine. I think ma'am has the last, Anjali ma'am has the session last, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So she still has time. Yeah.
Okay,
I think Aradhana, yeah, we'll just start in a minute or so. All right?
no
I'll,
problem.
I'll start. Yeah. I think let's begin. I'm sure there are more participants who will be joining us shortly. So I think let them join. I'll just start. A very warm good afternoon to everyone here. Uh, Warm welcome to our distinguished and esteemed speakers who've just joined, and and Anjali ma'am who will join us shortly. All the participants and my friends Parthvi and Aradhana. Uh, Community participation is one of the most effective elements to achieve sustainability in dealing with natural as well as human-induced disaster risks. Alongside sustainable development and disaster reduction, they are both essential preconditions for each other. Natural disasters severely hamper the progress and achievements of sustainable development, while at the same time, physical infrastructure that we are constructing may itself constitute a source of risk in any event of disasters. From the perspective of even environmental degradation or human intervention, security aspects, disaster management is a pressing issue for all of us and should be undertaken on a comprehensive basis. This whole approach seeks the communities at risk to get engaged in all the phases, that is the prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. In order to build disaster resilient communities, they need to be empowered first so that community members can cope with the adverse effects of natural hazards. This is the most effective approach in achieving even sustainability while we are dealing with natural disasters. With this intent and with COVID at the backdrop, the National Institute of Disaster Management, in collaboration with Innovatio Curis, have organized this webinar on community awareness and participation to handle biological disasters. The objectives for this particular webinar are for all of us to understand the importance of community awareness in managing especially the biological disasters, to get an insight into the need for community participation.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Am I audible, Partvi?
Now you are in between, you went off.
Okay. I thought I was audible enough. So I'll just
visible.
yes, ma'am. So maybe I've just given a backdrop of why there's always a need for the community level awareness also, which is very imperative when we are talking about the whole in the whole realm of disaster management. And with that backdrop, the intent for a better community participation and awareness was the intent when we decided to hold this particular webinar in collaboration with our partners, Innovatio Curis. And the title of this particular webinar is Community Awareness and Participation to Handle Biological Disasters. Objectives for this particular webinar are for all of us to understand the importance of community awareness in managing biological disasters, for us to get an insight into the need for community participation when we are handling any pandemics or epidemics or other biological disasters, to get an overview on the role of NGOs in community awareness with this particular human-induced aspect or the biological disaster part of it, and to help the participants gain an insight into the dynamics of pandemics or other disasters when it comes to with respect to the community resilience building. So for this particular, with this, these objectives in mind, we have with us three esteemed speakers, and I would first invite Surgeon Rear Admiral V.K. Singh sir for the topic on community awareness and participation to handle biological disasters. Sir will give an overview of what is the backdrop of human-induced biological disasters, their nature, how societies are more at risk from such biological disasters, for which the need is there's a heightened awareness need felt for it to manage such events. The seriousness of the biological disasters such as the COVID-19 outbreak, which has required all the countries to engage in extensive prevention efforts at the community level. So I shall call upon Surgeon Rear Admiral V.K. Singh sir, who's the Managing Director of Innovatio Curis. So sir is the Chairman at Innovatio Curis Foundation of Healthcare Excellence, which is a not-for-profit organization. Sir is an adjunct professor at World Health Innovation Network at University of Windsor, Canada. Sir is also an honorary professor at Australian Institute of Health Innovation. He's a visiting professor at Indian Institute of Management and Indian Institute of Technologies, and also other such esteemed institutes. Sir has authored 2 books of international caliber and levels, which is Innovations in Healthcare Management, Cost-Effective and Sustainable Solutions. Sir has served as Deputy Chief Medical Officer of United Nations and has visited over 42 countries. He's also been awarded the Vishisht Seva Medal, which is a Distinguished Services Medal for his services at Zambia by the President of India and commendation of Government of Zambia. Sir was also consultant at the National Disaster Management Authority and was also instrumental in formulating the national guidelines for disaster on mass management of casualties, besides other accolades to his credit. We are honored to have you with us, sir, and I welcome you for this webinar, and also now over to you, sir, for your session.
Thank you, Dr. Sushma, for giving a very lucid overall viewpoint of the disaster and also my bio. Incidentally, I wanted to tell you, I know Sushma for many years, and she has also contributed a chapter in my book on disaster, which she has been referring that I've authored 2 books, etc. So we have a close association as far as these professional angles are concerned. I am thankful to the NIDM that they thought of us and we are part of it, and we will try to overview the whole issue of disaster management, the biological disaster in particular. All participants are, I can see the number of people who have already joined. I thank them, and I only have a line to emphasize not only what we hear today or what we have read yesterday. I would expect as much as possible, if you can put it on ground, that's more important. Because that is the whole thing, is that if you really have implemented on ground, that is the one which is really important. The disasters have been, it is not from today, it is from many such disasters have happened. The 100 years back in 1918, 1919, the Spanish flu disaster was also there, where 1/3 of the world's population, at that time 500 million, was affected by that Spanish flu. And that out of that, 50 million people died. And if you really see the hindsight, you would really find that such disaster, what was then, and after exactly almost 100 years, what is this disaster? Both a biological disaster, and we are as ignorant as their time. Plus, we know little bit of thing, and we are also struggling certain issues which can come up. First thing was, at that time, the basic issue, there was no treatment. So is no treatment today for this particular COVID-19. There are conjectures and many drugs, plasma therapy, nothing was available. So they were very specific. If we say that this is the treatment, I don't think there is any such treatment at the moment. People have tried many such things, and ultimately it is the oxygen level, ventilators, symptomatic support, and many times even plasma therapy and whatever they could think. And ICMR now says the plasma therapy may not be really that much effective. The second one is that a normal issue is that the best is same isolation or segregation or taking the person away from that scene and taking the mask and social distancing. And earlier it was the chemical, we were using it for washing the hands, etc. But then it has created a lot of rashes. Patients have come, and now people are saying soap and water is the best answer. So that must be taken, and you should remain social distancing. And that's, again, is the key and hallmark. The people are thinking from the day the COVID has come, that something can happen if we bring the vaccination. So there have been lots of vaccination which are on trial. Some have been dropped at various stages. And there have been some very encouraging result, stage 3, etc. We are also thinking that the vaccine would come and that might bring the wonders, because we are not thinking of the herd immunity will be that easily which we can obtain. Issue at large is that vaccination, when we talk, right from the day one, every country was in race and every country said, I have a vaccine today. Russia has and giving it in, China has, and others are still thinking that we will soon have. There are three issues when you bring in a vaccine. One, it must be adapted or should be able to give it to maximum number of people with no toxicity, side effect or otherwise. Two, the immunity level should be for a longer time and definitely not less than 6 months. Like cholera vaccine is used in epidemic has got 6 months. Ideally, it should be year plus or so. So unless you develop a vaccine, use it for a year or 6 months, you will not know how long this is really going to give you immunity, antibody level, and other things. And third is the longer it is used and safer it is, that's the one which is really win the race. So you can't really think just from the day one, everybody is excited. Now the health minister has really given a statement. We are ready. There are many issues. There are some vaccines require minus 70 degree storage, which is not fit for India. We have lots of things which has to go right up to the village area. Then, so there's something which is practically can be done that should be thought of. And the health minister said, we logistically, we have already planned and planning. And what is really, with all these criteria, it does not, the vaccine may come in January, US says in next month. But effectively, this was a statement from the health minister that May, June, April, May, June would be the time when ideally a vaccine would be offering. Now, why this biological disaster when we are talking about? There are lots of linkages, pollution, climatic changes, and all that is also add to the morbidity and sensitivity of this particular disease. As Dr. Sushma has brought in that the cycle where preparedness, mitigation, prevention and rehabilitation, the disaster cycle, ideally you should be able to prevent. But many disasters you can't prevent. There are man-made disasters, there are also the natural disasters, etc. I'm not going to detail. The Indian history of disaster goes when it was Bhuj earthquake, when people thought there should be organized way of handling the disaster. And the previous Prime Minister has brought a Disaster Act of 2005. I was also instrumental in writing a guideline and part of the committee which formulated many such things of the act, etc. He always said, you should mitigate. You may not be able to prevent. Ideally, you should, but you may not be able to prevent. Then you should be able to reduce the impact of disaster to the minimum. So that a mitigation is the one which should be really considered. And rehabilitation, of course, when disaster happened, it takes long time. So the Disaster Act came, which gave a legal framework, which gave a institutional structure, and that's really worth reading what is of 2005 of that. And based on that, NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, and the training side, and National Institute of Disaster Management was created. I was a part of NDMA, and we wrote guidelines, and we thought of that people would be aware. Now, we had covered, and all is an open document. If you really go onto the website, you'll be able to see It can download and read, and all kinds of disaster from flood, earthquake, biological, chemical disaster, every kind of disaster guidelines were prepared. There's also implementation directives which were issued that what should be done into that till 2000. In the initially in 3 years and 5 years and 8 years, etc. This was an era in where Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the chairman of NDMA, and he was instrumental in bringing it. A lot of things when we started looking at it at that time, we even did a mock exercises which had never happened in the country. We did it in Gurgaon, we have done it in Bangalore, and it was a learning to us that what it is. And it was realized the most important part would be making community aware that there are disasters. What community otherwise thought is a God's wish, something has happened, you can't really help it, and for such crisis. Now, the attitude has to go, and we can say we can reduce the impact if we are well prepared. The institutional framework is there. So we started making people aware. NIDM also started making things by creating number of training programs. But from the health side, since the limited capability and capacity, they were running one for doctors. They also started some online training program. Probably that is the one which needs now again to revamp. One issue is greatly in any of these disasters is the behavior. You see today, people are not wearing masks. They're 500 rupees fine. Then somebody has made it 1,000 rupees fine. Then Delhi has made it rupees 2,000 fine. Why it should be? Because we believe either we are fed up of that for such a long time, and mind you, Spanish flu went for 2 years. It seems this will also last for 2 years, and when the vaccine will come, it will gradually will take care of immunity level, etc. So the behavior pattern is the one which really has to be also thought of. Nobody had thought of at any time of psychological impact. Psychological impact happens because one, you would find and kin had died, maybe even into the earthquake-like structure damage, and the loss of human life, loss of relationship. All that are really also thought of that this is one which should be taken care of. So I would insist upon, which is a good thing, that community, NGOs, government, NIDM, NDMA, or everyone has to make people aware. All those manuals and documents have been written, but how many of us really know about it? How many of us have read about it? I went to the IPS Academy where they had called on DG police and everyone. And they were surprised when I told that such manuals are existing. That was beginning when the guidelines were sent to the people, and at that level, people were not aware that there are guidelines now because this was sent to them, and ultimately probably PA just signed it and kept it. They were not really even seen about it. So at every level, you will find, and it is like in airlines is the best safety mechanism. Like airline, the air hostess, every time you travel, you still hear the same thing. How to put on a belt, how the mask will drop down, and this need to be spoken again and again. The training has to be given in the various organizations. It has to be done in a school. When I was part of the NDMA, we had requested and CBSE obliged us in social sciences, they have brought chapter on disaster. But there's no such mock drill. Many countries also do that, and that should be. When the accreditation of the hospitals and health facilities came, it was mandatory that all disaster management should be prepared and should be mock drill must be conducted twice a year. Based on that, we would really find that when I had seen it, the mock drill when we conducted in Bangalore and Gurgaon, it was many deficiency come. Gurgaon had a very multi-story structure, and they did not have lift which could go more than 6th floor or 7th floor. You can imagine what happens if fire takes place. So these are the people attuned if you do such training and a mock drill and exercises. So that is a necessary part of the requirement for each organization that must be insisted upon. And unfortunately, if you really leave it that people will do on their own, I am afraid you can see the story what is happening today. They are being pushed with the fine, etc. Armed forces is a better discipline factor. That is why you find there's a fire drill. Everybody is told how to handle the fire and so on and so forth. At country level, I have read and I've seen Israel is a wonderful that they is made it mandatory that in a basement they should have for the whole tower or whole apartments, it should be place where you can have food, water, storage, and also every person has a mask, etc., issued, which is also taking care of the biological and the radiation hazard. There are many countries, and like we have many states. Every state had its own problem. Somewhere it is avalanches. It is the somewhere it is coastal area is the cyclone. So there are many such things which are there, and that has to be catered for specific to that geographical area. And of course, in a pandemic like COVID-19 is a thing which is something comes once a while. After, as I've told you, it's almost 100 years, we are repeating the same thing. So it is the present generation would see it. It has been that it is the experience by itself, and you cannot really change people's behavior. They, for various reasons, are they really fed up, or they long time, and how to do things, etc. It is it is something which is really, when you talk of a biological disaster, it is a many. I will like to mention two things. After the guideline, the state, district, and nation had to prepare a disaster plan. First national disaster plan was prepared in 2016. Many of us do not know, even the most people who are relatedly supposed to be doing it, that there is some such document exists. And it is again amended. And November 2019, no less than it is the Prime Minister under Mr. Modi who has signed it and issued his National Disaster Management Plan in November 2019, and now we are now November 2020. It is 1 year later we are talking about it. I have no doubt, because I have handled this kind of a thing in various training programs, that even where the disaster training program they have not mentioned, it's around 400 pages document. It gives a 10 agenda point by the Prime Minister where it has to be done, how it has to be done. It talks about the various scenario, because the national plan and the biological disaster is, of course, a responsibility of Ministry of Health. It talks about NDMA. It talks about the State Disaster Management Plan and Act. All that I think is worth reading it, etc. How ignorant we are that there is a International Red Cross Society which have huge resources available with them. It has tents, it has generators, it has water purifiers, and many people do not know that next door this is line which can be used in case of disaster. So it is necessary that we need to sensitize people, we need to train people, and in which NGOs, all the other organizations which can chip in, social media, etc., should be brought in. The fake news, unscientific news, are also circulating in WhatsApp and social media. That should be taken really cautiously. Some people are overdoing it. Somebody says that haldi doodh is the one milk can give, which has created a lot of other side effects, etc. It has to be that a right information from the right source, scientifically proven, have to be shared. Here, the media has a big role to play. They are, it may be TV. You find that a TV, such advertisement do come. They are more photo operations than real awareness programs. And media has to be very responsive. Day and night, you cannot show the sensational and negative news and demoralize people, because psychological effect is the one which have now known, and such guidelines are, which was not known so much earlier. So it is to be seen that media is more responsible, and it's not a media trial. It is not a sensation where the channel can be sold. I will give you one example that there was an earthquake in. You have to respect the privacy of the community and the people and an individual. You cannot keep showing a mutilated person again and again, 24 hours by all the channels, which really doesn't really serve any purpose. And then you might say it didn't get any help, or etc. etc. We like to give that the whole community and people are to be made aware of. And the necessary is that the media has to be explained, and media has to be given some ethical, and media has to give in some such things that should be plus and minus, negative and positive, and they should adhere to it. Of late, you might have seen media has also come in a lot of criticism, where some people in the TV media, some people were even arrested. The reasons have been very simple, that you cannot keep day and night something which is able to sell their thing. Earthquake in Nepal, where our NDRF also moved, National Disaster Response Force, and the 14 days they did a wonderful job. But then the host country realized that media is overstepping a responsibility, and the privacy of the people is not being respected. So the whole efforts was negative because of the media people, and those things had to be withdrawn. Those resources from the host country have to be withdrawn as desired by them. So this have to be very seriously have to be taken. You might have seen the way they do the media trial, maybe on any topic you say, are they do certain media trials before even court such decides about it. Even court has also passed a stricture on it. So this is what would like that should be taken on account. I feel in overall that we should read the National Disaster Plan, Management Plan, and see something, you should be able to do it. And we'll be aware of everything. I'll just take 3 minutes more. The Ministry of Health has really brought in that how these biological disasters should be taken, and a very positive side of it, something which we're importing, now we are exporting, like personal protection equipment. There are a lot of innovations which have come, the ventilators, etc., which is the one which has come at the really shortest possible time. It is because of our innovations, and also because of our structurally we are doing it, and structurally we are also written all that in the guidelines in the master plan. We have in our panel somebody who's from clinical psychological background, also somebody from the NGO side, and they'll also like to give you their part of it, how it can be what all we should imbibe and what all we should accept and what all we should spread the word around. The places which need to be trained are training at the schools, community area, community different way, and also social media and avoid fake news, etc. Gradually things are improving, there's no doubt about it. People are getting aware, but be aware, but everybody should not become a doctor by itself, and they advise something which is maybe not scientifically proven. Thank you very much, and I'm sure you will read the documents, what I have said so, because I have given you the gist of thing overview in my half an hour talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful insight and harping upon the need to, integrate mock drills, the actual, which is the actual on-site, kind of a trial, something in the plans itself. We do advocate the same in our whenever we are, designing or making an outline of plans at the state levels or district levels also. Equally important is the need to not look at biological disasters in silos, and there are different states are struggling with multi-hazard scenarios, and Amphan recently was a classic example where the state of West Bengal was struggling to deal with the cyclone Amphan, and there was the pandemic situation was also there. So many people who were moved into the relief sites, you parallelly have a challenge of maintaining the social distance, and at the same time, people are cluttered in the relief camps, and that was a challenge for the state to manage it. Also, one important thing, sir, that you've highlighted is media sensitization and the right information from the right source to be disseminated, which is a big challenge when it comes to bigger disasters like the pandemics. Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful insight. Moving on, COVID-19 has kind of become a morphed into an unprecedented health and economic crisis scenario. But prior to the emergence of COVID-19, the UN Secretary General had positioned the year 2020 as a super year for action on sustainability. The Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, as well as the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. They were all adopted in the year 2015-16. India too is a signatory for the same. And the aim was to enhance national and community level coping capacities for disaster risks. They also emphasized on comprehensive approach to address multi-hazards and the impacts at different scales, frequencies, and intensities. Alongside, you have the health concerns, which cross cuts across all global frameworks, and the Sustainable Development Goal 3, which specifically calls for community participation to handle epidemics and pandemics. To highlight this need for community participation in handling biological disasters, may I invite our next esteemed speaker, Dr. Indu Arneja, ma'am. She is the founder, director of Indian Institute of Healthcare Communication and a pioneer in the field of healthcare communication in India. She is an external assessor for National Quality Assurance Standards, which is under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. She was also a core group member of Advisory Board on Health and Mental Health for National Human Rights Commission. Dr. Arneja is a visiting faculty to some of the very prestigious organizations like Maulana Azad Medical College, Delhi University, IGNOU, and Public Health Foundation of India, IIM Ahmedabad, Delhi Judicial Academy, etc. She has over 30 years of experience in the field of quality implementation in the healthcare sector and has multiple YouTube ongoing programs under the titles of Heart to Heart Talk and Master Stroke with Dr. Indu Arneja. She's a regular invitee in many national and international conferences. We are very happy and glad to have you with us, ma'am, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sushma, for such an elaborate introduction. Small correction about the topic of discussion. What I'm going to talk about is probably the psychosocial impact of the pandemic or the biological disaster that we all are facing right now. And it's not just the how we are facing it, but then how do we combat it? I think my major focus will be to empower people who are attending the program to understand how we can actually cope up with this, and then we need to spread this across, because I think once this disaster is over, the hangover is going to be much more disastrous. So we really now got to prepare for that. And actually the preparation should have begun long ago, but it's never too late. Once we become aware that right now also we can deal with it, and also minimize the damage that it can cause to the mental health of people. I think that is what is going to be the topic of discussion. And I'm here to discuss all practical aspects of mental health rather than talking about theory and what is ideal. I'll be just focusing on how do you really go about, handling this, because individually each one of us is, affected directly. And ultimately, we need to deal in our personal and professional capacities, in our personal life as well as in our professional life, and then also empower people who are around us to have, to learn how to deal with it and also minimize the damage. Share my presentation with all of you so that I can simultaneously discuss and also, okay, one second. So please let me know if you can see my first slide. Is my first slide visible to all? If somebody could
Yes,
kindly.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Because sometimes, this slide isn't working and I don't get to realize. So please let me know in case if the slide is not, working. Yeah. So as I said, I'll be majorly focusing on how do you really combat the psychosocial impact of biological disaster. And I think you'll agree with me that this is something that we had never thought of. And as Dr. Singh very rightly said, that in spite of having faced, Spanish flu, I don't think we ever thought that we will have another biological disaster in the time to come. And we are very ill prepared for it, because normally we don't, we live in a very wishful world where we assume it's over and now everything is going to be fine, and therefore we normally do not, think of preparing ourselves. And for me also, I believe it has been the first time experience, and for many of you, I'm sure even it's a first time experience. So definitely emotions are very high. Initially everybody thought that no, it's not happening. Then somebody thought it's happening only in China. Then we thought, okay, it's happening in the, Europe. But then slowly we realized, no, now it's happening in our country. And now again, when it came to our country, we thought, okay, it's going to be only with just few of us. But no, that's not true. Right now, I think all of us are in the middle of it. And as Sir has already said, it's almost going to take us 2 years to come out of it. It's not just during the COVID, but it is even after the COVID that we are going to face the consequences of it. And there is a lot at stake. I think that realization is actually happening now slowly. And we are getting to realize that being in lockdown period for such a long time has actually left many of us anxious. I get number of calls, my friends and relatives and my patient, you say that we feel very lonely and we feel very, left out. We don't know how do you utilize our time, or how to, go out. And those who are going out, they are also in a way anxious and worried and concerned. And those who are at home, they are equally, upset and disturbed. And even when the lockdown is over, I think the anxiety hasn't gone, the fear hasn't gone for some of us. Whereas some of us are just moving around very, very carelessly without any concern. And, especially if we are not affected by it. And if we are not having any symptoms, or if our work is not getting affected, we hardly care to protect others or look after others. I think the common challenges faced by people are those who are at home or who are not leading a very active life. They're feeling lonely, they're sad, they're anxious, especially if they have fear of this disease. So they are anxious. Many calls I'm receiving where people are actually already in depression. especially people who already had depression as a pre-existing illness. I mean, there's a relapse. There's a very high rate of relapse in anxiety and depression. Of course, at the financial front, we are seeing a lot of people are losing their job. A lot of professions have completely vanished. A lot of businesses have completely, are gone in, air. And we know that it is leading to a lot of financial losses across the country, across the world. Lifestyles have changed completely. Those of us who were too much into traveling and going around and conducting programs and doing outdoor activities, we are completely more like house arrested. I mean, I can say for myself, I'm literally house arrested by my daughter. She's not letting me go out just out of fear of me catching the infection, and I have already got it in spite of being at home. So many of us are overworked because if we were not used to doing the household chores that we already always had help, many of us haven't taken back our health back, and we are overworked because of that. Migration is I mean, we saw it in a very huge way in the beginning of COVID, but even now is another concern people are really boggled about. There are already pre-existing illnesses which have not been given due attention because of the emphasis on COVID. A lot of new diseases have come up. COVID itself has become a very big issue, and then post-COVID number of health issues are seen. So all this is something that we all are facing together. But let me remind all of you, of course, I've talked about this sad part. Now I want to give you a ray of hope, and I want to show you how we have to deal with it. So what I want to say here is that uncertainty of any situation is bound to create stress and anxiety. It's a very, very normal, natural response to an abnormal situation that we had never thought of or we were not prepared. But at the same time, let me remind you that we don't grow when things are easy. We grow when things are challenging. Even Bhagavad Gita came into being in the middle of the battlefield of Mahabharata. I don't think it could have written when it was at peace time. So I would look at the brighter side, and I would like all of you to look at the brighter side and see how can we actually deal with this situation effectively. Now, whatever has happened has happened. That is not something in your control or in my control. How can I really deal with this? And I think this is what is the agenda of my session with all of you. Can I find some good ways to deal with what has happened with me? I think that's the best way to deal with the situation. So here I would like to introduce you to a concept of two minds. I'm sure most of you have rational mind and emotional mind. Usually in peacetime, rational mind leads the decision making and situation handling. But in stressful times, it is the emotional mind which literally hijacks the rational mind. It literally paralyzes our rational mind. I mean, people who are even very wise in the peacetime, they just lose, touch with the reality or touch with what is happening around them. So our emotional mind is something like this vigilant monkey, which actually becomes hyperactive in situations of anxiety, stress, and any kind of panic situation. Now, this monkey has a problem. This monkey would actually overestimate the risk and underestimate the coping ability. So many of us who are feeling anxious or are sad or feeling low, we are actually overestimating the risk, especially those of us who are safe, who are at home, who are not exposing or who are not taking a lot of unnecessary risk. And fortunately, if we are financially in a comfortable position and we have a roof on our head or we are able to work from home, and if our family is at home, tell me honestly, how much of actual risk are you facing individually? But the problem with this emotional mind is it would actually overestimate the risk. And on the other side, it would actually give you a feeling that your coping abilities are not enough. You are going to, get into trouble, and you are going to really get into the real situation. So the problem with this monkey is that it actually overestimates the risk and underestimates the coping ability. So as a result, even small problem will look very, very big to some of us. It would look like a lion, and we would actually get boggled with this situation. At this moment, I would also ask you to check your self-talk. We all do a lot of self-talking. We are thinking, that's also a self-talk. So self-talk is a program that you give to your mind and body. You really need to watch the quality of your self-talk. In case if you're giving yourself negative program, then trust me, your body and mind is going to quietly believe it and follow its instruction. For example, if I start telling myself, oh, I am 60 years old and I am at a higher risk than others, then I am definitely going to get it. And once I get COVID, I'm sure I will not be able to survive. I will not be able to cope with this. So this is the program I'm giving to my body and my mind. You can well imagine when it actually happens to me, how am I going to face it? My body and mind will be already half affected by it. So naturally, they will be half prepared to deal with it, or will be already in a very, sad situation, sad place, will not be able to cope with it. So make sure that your self-talk is not exaggerating the problem and is not feeding you with the negative thoughts. This is something that we have to do on a regular basis. And in case if you think you are doing too much of negative self-talk, then please stop doing it and be realistic. Assess the actual risk. One more thing that I want to talk about is the media exposure that we are doing. Dr. Singh has very rightly said that media is actually not acting very responsible. Sometimes it would actually talk about what has gone wrong, and to the extent that it boggles us and it completely paralyzes us. But consciously we have to keep our media appetite in check, because this is food for your emotional mind. So media is something like, buffet that is available. Missing delicious food like I'm sitting at home and missing. At the same time, if there is lot available in buffet, it doesn't mean that I have to go and eat everything. Many times you will see people going with the plate to every counter and taking every, food item, and you can see the plate, it's full like almost for 2 to 3 people. If this is what we are doing, especially I see a lot of people on WhatsApp, on social media, on reading messages, in seeing videos, then they are forwarding it. They are sending to their dear ones. It could be about what is happening, how people are dying, how we can see dead bodies lying here and there, or how beds are not available, or how doctors and nurses are are really stressed out or panicking, and are they are also equally affected by the disaster. And I'm just forwarding this information. So what am I doing? I'm first of all affecting myself by taking negative food for my emotional mind, and then I'm spreading negativity around. So very consciously we need to really check our appetite. Please see only how much you can digest. I mean, ask me honestly, I do not watch news all through my day. Maybe once in the morning and once in the evening, maybe for 10 minutes, I would watch news. That also I would look for a channel that gives more sensible news, rather than, to showcase something to increase their TRP. And even on WhatsApp, I think the videos that we are getting, sometimes these videos are so fabricated on the media to create confusion or panic, or just disturb people. So I would personally advise, there's no point getting into the videos and seeing them and then forwarding them and wasting your time and wasting others' time and panicking yourself and causing panic to others. I think this is one thing that we really need to consciously control if we want to stay mentally healthy. While you handle your emotional mind, we also need to train our rational mind. And we have to train our rational mind to stay. Rational mind is something that gets completely hijacked in the times of crisis, or whenever we are under any kind of stress or anxiety. So how do you train your rational mind? We need to really, shift our focus. Rather than focusing on what I can't do. For example, I can sit at home and cry, oh, I used to be in so much of travel. I used to go 10 times in a month outside, and I used to deliver lectures, and I used to do this, and I used to do that. And I say, okay, now I have no travel, no activity, no work. I need to focus on what is available right now. So rather than focusing on what I don't have, we need to focus on what we have. And trust me, if you will look, especially those of us who are getting so much of time to sit at home and work. I think this was something I was craving for all this while. I got a wonderful opportunity to be with my family, to be with myself. I had a bucket list of work to be done. I'm just going through that list and tick marking. Okay, things I want to do before I die. So I'm trying to say, okay, this is done, this is done. So similarly, I think we all need to focus on what is available. And a lot of opportunities have come our way. Only thing is we need to be vigilant and we need to keep an eye. Another important thing that we need to train our rational mind is to learn to focus on solutions rather than focusing on problems. People who are anxiety prone, people who are depression prone, people who are, in habit of panicking about problems, then talking about solutions. And if that is your tendency, then you're bound to become anxious and spread anxiety around you. I can share a beautiful tool here with all of you. You can actually make a list of things that is bothering you. So it could have maybe 5 things, 10 things, 20 things, even 100 things. Make a list of things that are bothering you, and you can draw these 2 circles like I've drawn on my screen, yellow and a blue one. Whatever thing that is bothering you, but you have no control over, that item will go in the yellow circle. Now, for example, if there is something like it's raining corona outside, I think we are already in stage 3 and community spread, and I don't know what all is happening. And we know it's badly raining corona outside. It is true. I'm not denying it's true, but is that in my control? Can I do anything? Can I change it? Can I bring any change in the people's mind? No. So this will go in the yellow circle. Now, some people are not taking it seriously. For example, we have recently come out of our festival, festival, and still we are into, some more festival. People are not following social distancing. People are not using masks. People are not washing their hands on regular basis, and especially people who are asymptomatic. They are not. They think, okay, if I'm not affected, why do I care for others? So, but this is true, but again, it is not in your control or in my control. So all these things which are true, they're worth bothering, but they're not in your control or they're not in my control, will go in the yellow circle. On the other side, taking all precaution is in my control. Using mask is in my control. Maintaining social distance is in my control. So all these things that are in my control will go in the blue circle, which is smaller in size. Then very mindfully, you have to focus only and only on the blue circle. You may have 100 things that are bothering you. Take out things over which you have direct control, and you can change, or you can, take some action. So all actionable will be part of the blue circle, which is smaller in size, and we need to focus our energy, time, and efforts in the blue circle. This will really help you change situation and deal with the situation. And this is not only for corona period or for this particular biological situation hazard that or a biological disaster we are facing. I think in all spheres of life, this tool is greatly helpful. Because life is 10% what you get it and 90% what you make it. I mean, this could be pandemic, later on it could be anything else, but if we adopt this strategy, we will mindfully focus on the solution rather than focusing on the problems. Let me remind you, God has pressed the reset button. Life is not going to be the same. Things are not going to be the same. We were hoping, okay, March hai, April hai, May hai. I think we are already towards the end of the year. Very clearly, we are nowhere close to the end of Corona. I don't know what will be 2021. I don't want to look pessimistic, but I want to tell you, prepare yourself for tomorrow. Start thinking what skills are required now and in the time to come. I was just thinking, when I was thinking what example will fit in here and how we really need to focus on how do we skill up ourselves. I think around 20 years ago, when computers were introduced to the government sector, and we had computers coming to banking and then, railways and all other government sector, people were given the choice of upscaling themselves or taking VRS. And a lot of government employees opted for VRS. To them, computers appear to be like a monster, like something very difficult. But let me tell you, if you will look around, there are so many skills right now which may look difficult to some of us. Computers, podcasting, blogging, public speaking, all these may appear very difficult. Like, for example, even using this WebEx and Zoom, which was something impossible for many of us. But today we are talking to our computer and assuming that there are people who are listening to me, aptly. So similarly, I'm sure there will be a lot of skills available around you which you may require for tomorrow. We all need to utilize our time in upskilling ourselves and spreading this message across, especially when we get to hear about Make in India, Make in India. I think a lot of new opportunities are going to come our way. But we need to be prepared for it. So this is something that we really need to focus on rather than, crying or thinking about what has happened with me. An important virtue that will come your way or will be useful at this moment is your mental resilience. It is your mental strength that's going to really, really help you. And for that, we really need to learn to be flexible. I think something that we really need to learn is from grass. It is the rigid and, tall trees that would fall. It's the grass who would survive the storm. So let's learn from the grass and try to be more flexible, more adaptable. If I need to learn some new skills, there is no harm. If I really need to work from home in this manner, there's no harm. If I need to change my working hours, there is no harm. That's all flexibility. And if we learn to become flexible, I think we can sail through this situation in a far more successful manner. Let's also learn from cactus. I don't want anybody to be as thorny as these cactus. Let's learn from the cactus to live even in the adversities. No water, no food, cactus can survive. Check your adversity quotient. People who have high adversity quotient, they will definitely survive this pandemic and they will come out with flying colors. So work on your adversity quotient, improve your adversity quotient, spread a message across. When I'm talking to you, it's not just for you, it's for your families, it's for your team, it's for people with whom you're working. It is a community where you are leading and people with whom you are interacting. Spread this message across and then you will see how the whole wave would completely change. Stay in the company of positive people. You will see people around you who just talk negative, who just talk something that is, they just get up with the negative thought, they just talk negative and they sleep with the negative thought. Stay away from them. Stay in the company of people who talk positive, who talk optimistic. Focus on yourself. Do some exercises, yoga, meditation, abdominal breathing is a wonderful way to combat anxiety and depression. And we have all learned that yoga and meditation are really, really important food for your mental and physical health. Another important thing which I always recommend to people is the prayer of serenity. I think this is something we have to really bring in here and now. There are a lot of things that you can change, but there are many things that you have no control over. So let's pray to Almighty to give us the strength to change the things that we can change and accept the things that we cannot change. I think if we start thinking in this manner, I think we can deal with the situation in a far more, stronger manner. And the attitude of gratitude. While I'm doing this program for all of you, I'm already COVID positive. My husband is an ophthalmologist and he opened his clinic a couple of weeks ago. And all three of us, like my husband, my daughter and me, we three are, right now COVID positive. My husband is now negative, but me and my daughter are still COVID positive and I'm just, isolating myself and staying at home. So the other day I was thinking, why did I get it? Why should have I got it? My daughter also was saying, why did we get it? We are taking all precaution. Then day before yesterday, I received a message, somebody known to me, two brothers of, a family seriously ill because of corona, admitted in ICU, and both of them passed away. I think hearing that, I should have, I immediately thought, I'm surviving, I'm fine, I'm not badly affected. So I think we always need to bring in this attitude of gratitude in our, every sphere of life, every sphere of life. All of us are safe, all of us are with our family, all of us, especially I think it is the people who do not have regular income, probably if they crib and cry for money, my heart goes for them. But people like us who are comfortable, who have enough, God has been kind, He's given us roof, who has given us family, who has given us education, knowledge. Why should we be cribbed? We should always be thanking Him that you have saved us from this. And let's try to see how we can help others and, spread positivity and hope among people. And those of us who are really stressed out, who are really anxious, who are depressed, please talk it out. talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to people who can help you. In case if that is not working, please do not hesitate taking help. Please consult your doctor, please consult your counselor, please consult your psychiatrist. Do not leave these things unattended. Please take help. I mean, medicines are available, counseling is available, talking helps. We must, not leave it unattended. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, ma'am, for the wonderful session. Ma'am, one area that even in the field of disaster management that we emphasize is the need for psychological and mental well-being. It's quite an ignored field, and because most of our efforts are always on the relief aspect, and we tend to not look at the deep inside the roots where the need for psychological well-being and caregiving is an important aspect and area. Ma'am, it was really very you to emphasize on the importance and value of gratitude. I still feel that people still do not understand and value what the feeling of gratitude provides us. A lot of us, I think all the 79, 80 of us, in this particular webinar are still blessed that we are not touched by this pandemic situation so much as people who were the migrant workers. There were issues of reverse migration and how it was impacting the rural women, because the men folk had moved back to their hometowns and they were taking up all the jobs which earlier perhaps the rural women were holding. And how much the livelihoods have been impacted, the health conditions of a lot of people, the vulnerable groups mostly. In fact, ma'am, that reminds me, as per the National Mental Health Survey for the year 2016, I suppose it says that in our Indian society we still have 15% of population who are undergoing some mental health concern or the other. And to add to it, you have the stigma attached to the we look at people requiring the need for mental care concerns, will we stigmatize the whole issue, and that makes such people apprehensive to approach for health care. And this is perhaps also a reason why it is leading to a lot of suicide cases in our country. Almost 300 suicides on a daily basis. So of course you have various reasons attached to it, and that makes it very important for all of us to take the subject of mental well-being and mental care with a more vigorous approach. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have another important, aspect attached to community awareness, which is like experiences have shown that people are often taken aback with the sudden attack of either natural or created disasters, and to their rescue, different agencies come forward for relief and response activities, and which we generally classify as either government agencies or the non-governmental organizations. And we always talk about how grassroots level, local level NGOs who have good networks and who have a good hold at the grassroots level, and their interaction and networking with the communities is very much more as compared to people sitting at the state or national levels. And this makes it important, why NGOs play an important role in the whole area of disaster management. And so to present, her views on what can be the apt role of NGO community awareness in the biological disasters, may I now invite Dr. Anjali Quatra ma'am. She is the Director General, Center for Disaster Risk and Safety, and also the founder chairperson of Philanthropy. She's a renowned disaster management expert. She's well versed in international standards of emergency preparedness and management. She's a medical anthropologist and MPhil and PhD holder from the University of Delhi. She has been trained in the field of Emergency Planning College, UK, and Safety First Institute, UK. She has worked with the Royal British Army as well. As a leading member of the UK-India Bilateral Expert Network on Radiological Safety and Security under Royal United Services Institute, UK, she has been instrumental in generating awareness on radiological safety measures among various industries as well as the masses. Also to mention, Dr. Quatra has been a member of the task force of National Disaster Management Authority, and she's been a member of the Medical and Health Services Committee for Commonwealth Games as well. She is also contributing member of the UN Gender Solution Exchange Program. We welcome you, ma'am, at this platform, and we request you to take over and present your session. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, Dr. V.K. Singh, all the panelists and all the participants. Today's webinar is having a very important topic discussed because, the governments alone, they cannot manage and handle all types of disasters. And with all the machinery that's possible, it's not possible to manage without the active participation of the people. And for this, it is important that the community needs to be empowered. And, a lot of scholars previously have also felt that it is high time to adopt a strategy that involves the vulnerable people directly in the planning and implementation, whether it is of mitigation, preparedness, response, or recovery measures required for the disaster management. This is because the communities, they themselves are the best judges of their own vulnerability. And also they are the ones who are capable of making the best decisions regarding their well-being. This philosophy involves a local level people and also the local leaders, whether political, whether social leaders or religious leaders, as well as the community. So they can also be utilized to provide the necessary services and logistics also to the victims during the disaster. And all this is possible only if there are clear guidelines for it. And in our country, the National Disaster Management Authority has outlined it in the National Disaster Management Guidelines for biological disasters. And this strategy is being encouraged both in the developed countries as well as in the developing countries. But you see, the involvement of the community in managing disasters like biological disasters, as exemplified by the COVID-19 also, requires a fair amount of knowledge, awareness, and also confidence among the community. And in this, what we have seen in this COVID-19 experience is that the role of media has come out to be paramount. So I'll like to focus my today's address on this particular aspect of community awareness, because in case of biological disasters, a lot of other methods of preparedness, of community awareness, that especially after the disaster strikes, cannot be implemented because of the infectious nature of the disease. So we must underline here that the media, its impact of the reporting of public health activities, or reporting about the feelings of fear and about the concerns in the issues is huge. The impact is so huge. So the media should ensure that all the information it is conveying is easy to understand, it is up to date, and it is useful for solving the problems of the public. So what we have seen is that there have been many challenges in this regard, because the fast moving outbreak of the disease showed that there was, the major problem was of, even valid information available in the public domain. So media must take up a vital obligation to responsibly report the facts and to communicate effectively, whether it is the advices about the health, whether advice about traveling, about businesses, that is coming from the governing bodies, but it may not be reaching to the relevant people. So media has a very important role here. So with so many people getting the information from media resources, this media has to make a lot of difference, as the knowledge, attitude, and practice regarding the new infection. It is vital for improving the preparedness, both in the healthcare professionals as well as in the general public. So what I can say is that journalists, as well as the media organizations, they should do their utmost to keep themselves up to date with the outbreak. They must only use reliable information from the respective health departments right up to the WHO, and they should fact check, they should reality check all the information before they give it out. So although the constantly growing numbers, case numbers which are being reported by the media, they are interesting to the public. So the second point is, it is also important for the media to communicate the stories that are behind these numbers. That is, for what countries are going to, what are the countries going to do to respond to the disease? What are the plans? What has been successful? What has been a failure? And more importantly, what individuals can do to solve their problems. So what I mean is that they should ensure that the stories have practical and actionable information. But there's another problem here, because the COVID-19 outbreak has shown that it is not just a science story. No, it has impacted so many sectors that it has become much more than a science and health story only. So it has also become the remit of not only health and science journalists, but of various other beats. Just as COVID-19 has affected tourism travel, so even those journalists are reporting about it. Of course, the finance and business sector has been so adversely affected. So the economic impact directly coming from it. So those journalists are also reporting about COVID-19. Then again, about the sports industry, name it, all of the sectors have in fact got affected. So this has posed a problem. There are many journalists who are now covering and learning about the COVID-19 outbreak. So not just journalists who might be more familiar with the field. So that has led to scope for error or even accidentally misleading information. So this COVID-19 experience is showing that misinformation, stigma, fake news, this is a very serious problem. So what we can say is that there is a pressing problem, and especially with the modern day online media, the spread of misinformation. Earlier also this has been much talked about, especially in the political spheres, or maybe even in the healthcare regarding the sentiment towards vaccination. And in case of COVID-19 also, the spread of misinformation is a big issue. And, that there have been theories like that the virus was engineered in a lab as a bioterrorism agent, or we can say that even it was said that the symptoms are actually caused by 5G mobile network. And there were other reportings like thousands of listings on Amazon promoting fake COVID-19 cures. Then the price of sanitizer and face masks, they increased by over 2000% initially. So all these kind of unwanted consequences of misinformation that again was given out by the media, which was not very well informed itself. So this has to be seriously addressed. Now, the second challenge is that of avoiding stigma. Earlier in the break, when the outbreak happened, the virus got named as Wuhan virus, something like this. That was trending on Twitter. So this is again not correct, because this wording is stigmatizing individuals from that city. And also, we can say it is building an association with those of a certain ethnicity. So in some cases, we can say it caused xenophobia also. So building stigma, this is very bad for outbreak control, because one reason is it can drive individuals to even hide illness, in order to avoid this discrimination. Then it can prevent people from seeking health care. And this can, in fact, lead to virus spreading even more. So, in fact, for this, even WHO had to stress this standpoint with its director general, saying it in so many press conferences, that this is the time for science and not rumors. And this is the time for solidarity and not stigma. So it is important that the trusted media sources, they should just ignore misinformation, and also they should make attempts to counter it. This they can do by, by thinking who is it that their audience might trust, bring in credible experts, and also by showing empathy with those who are affected. And more importantly, using the appropriate language, and even thoroughly and carefully explaining the various terminologies being used. For example, what does community transmission mean? Things like those kind of terms, though being used, but are not well understood by the common masses. So, WHO, in fact, they have a Mythbuster section in their website, which addresses some misbeliefs about COVID-19. So, media houses can do this kind of service for the community, because appropriate language can be very important in countering stigma, particularly with reference to places, with reference to countries. It is very important. And reporting should look at the bigger picture, actually should not give out details of individuals, because it is necessary to avoid stigma and its devastating impacts. Next, I will say that in addition to reporting the stories, journalists should prefer offering practical information to audiences. What we say, news you can use. For example, maybe the local media can give out local telephone numbers for healthcare services, the right advice on availability of masks, the right kind of mask, hand washing, etc. Because these smaller practical steps from trusted and up-to-date sources, they can help inform the public on the advice which is coming from the broader governing bodies that may otherwise they cannot hear, because a lot of other sources of information are blocked. Now, another aspect of media reporting is the issue of politicization. Now, because again, even seen in this outbreak, the politicization has been a very difficult aspect to manage. Fundamentally, for many journalists, political motive is an important part of the job, because their aim is to hold governments and governing bodies to account. But some outbreak coverage and press statements went overboard, and they had to be criticized as having pro or anti certain political sentiments. And this impacts public trust also on the source. So actually, this is tough to balance in scenarios where politics is inherently intertwined with the outbreak response, where we see that it is in many cases impossible to tell whether some of the actions taken by the politicians will pay off in the long run. If we see the example of the lockdown of many cities that happened as announced by the governments, because this was an unprecedented move that has not been trialed in outbreak response before. So sometimes it is very difficult for these people to even judge what is right and what is wrong. And of course, they have to strike a balance. And it should be integral when reporting health and science, because reporting facts with the genuine intent to expose the latest outbreak news and happening, it should not carry out a political motive, and that is the most paramount consideration. So with this in mind, and a focus on reporting both good news and bad news, and the information provided should accurately reflect the situation. That is very important. And the next, I would say, is that what we have again experienced in the COVID-19 case has been that the pandemics did extend beyond the purview of medicine, and prevalent misinformation on the media, on certain media, I could say, it has the potency to drive mass hysteria, and even an anxiety. And this kind of psychological and economic consequences of such a biological disaster will actually even outlast the infection. So for this, again, it is very important that governments, public health authorities, and digital corporations, they should not only promote digital literacy, but they should combat the ways in which the impact of social media, it may be spawning an irreversible post-truth age. Even after the COVID-19 pandemic dissipates. So it has to be seen that misinformation during these kinds of outbreaks, which has been pervasive, in not now only, in the other recent large outbreaks also. For example, in the 2018 elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo, suspicions were raised when the ruling government cancelled the national elections in the Ebola affected areas, and it eliminated the opposition votes. So we can see that rumors are also a second form of misinformation. And like in this case, one popular conspiracy theory was going around that the virus was developed as a means to wage a biological war against China. So you can see that these kind of things are not to be encouraged at all. And secondly, untrue and exaggerated or maybe even dubious medical claims or even hoaxes, we can say, are other forms of misinformation. And various unproven natural and traditional remedies were proffered as cures. That was seen again in case of Ebola and now again in case of COVID-19. Certain drinks containing mint or spices like saffron, etc. They were making the rounds on Twitter. Another fact is that I would say the underlying cause, what causes all this is that during times of emergency and disaster, urgent questions arise and they require immediate response. So, but the problem is that officials don't consistently provide the accurate information that's required very quickly. In such a time, social media can be the information poison when we need facts more. So we can call it a post-truth society. What it means is the one in which subjective opinions and unverified claims, they in fact have more public influence than even the valid scientific and biomedical facts. Because sometimes the need for evidence to support the reasoned arguments is being downplayed. In fact, the social norm that is there about holding people accountable for what they say is getting weakened. So when complex emergencies arise, it is actually the public officials who are cautious about making premature announcements. So instead, they carefully craft their statements to ensure accuracy and avoid the pitfalls of misinterpretation and exaggeration. But paradoxically, this careful approach also contributes to the formation of an information vacuum, which then gets filled by rumors and falsehoods. So in this digital age, because the time needed to analyze, assess, and communicate information is much more than the instantaneous spreading of misinformation on social media platforms. This impact of social media and misinformation also becomes pronounced because of a confirmation bias. Now, what that means is a confirmation bias is the tendency to accept the statements that reinforce our established views or to even downplay statements that counter our views. So an example of this is the racist content that gets spread through social media that reinforces the already existing biases and prejudices. So xenophobic reactions. These kind of reactions, they had emerged during the 2003 SARS outbreak also in Toronto, amongst other cities. Now, these are being repeated during the current COVID-19 pandemic also. Now, what's different now is that how easily the social media can this behavior. The social media also facilitating a form of prejudiced collective organizing that rapidly enlists a large number of people. That is similar to crowdsourcing. So even though sometimes it is doing so on the basis of very questionable claims and beliefs. For example, again, an online petition compiled by 8,000 people in Canada demanded that the school board should ban students whose family members had recently traveled to China. So such kind of, very pronounced and panic kind of statements and actions by the people is the resultant of this kind of social media misinformation. But not all is bad. In contrast, if to all this what we have said, there's so much positive contribution of media. As we have seen, as the outbreak intensifies, social media it took on a new and increased importance with the large-scale implementation of social distancing, quarantine measures, and lockdowns of complete cities. Social media platforms actually became a way to enable homebound people to survive isolation and even to seek help. And a lot of people could coordinate donations, and even as a source of entertainment, and even to socialize with each other, even their near kins. So we have to see how best we can use the media and how to avoid its negative outcomes. So finally, what I can say is that the frequency of such kind of disease outbreaks, the kind we are witnessing, it may even increase, in future. So the pandemics will require a coordinated global response strategies. So digital cooperations and social media platforms, can and must be at the heart of these strategies, since their responses and willingness to collaborate with governments will determine whether social media is viewed as a beneficial or a pathological vector of pandemic response. So I'll say that at present, it is imperative to develop policies and mechanisms that address the digital creation and spread of misinformation about disease outbreaks. Now, to do this, of course, will require biomedical knowledge to be supplemented by expertise about social, political, and cultural underpinnings. Because without that understanding, efforts to contain COVID-19 will be hindered by spreading unnecessary panic and confusion and leading to division. Whereas what is required is solidarity and collaboration, which are the only key to saving lives and ending this health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this insightful session on how media, being such a powerful tool, can be instrumental or play an important role in, curtailing issues like the pandemic situations. You also very rightly pointed out on the need for, media ethics, how media needs to, look into, screen out the kind of informations that they disseminate to the larger public and in their reportings. Of course, media people, journalists, they have their own challenges while doing so. Nonetheless, it's very important for them to be, sensitized when it comes to dealing with such larger concerns like pandemic situations. And that's like, it's really important for the media to be sensitized also. But of course, as was also mentioned by VK Singh sir, on the need for that behavioral change aspect which needs to be brought about in the people, and media henceforth, if rightly, prudently, and wisely used, can definitely play a role in bringing out that behavioral change communication to the larger masses. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. Um, with this session, we come to the end of our three topics that we have had prepared for this webinar. And, the house is open for participants to share their experiences, or if they have any queries. We have one question. I think this is for Indu ma'am. It's by Khushbu. I think she wants to know, perhaps on how healthcare workers can, their role can be strengthened in dealing with psychosocial aspect, especially for vulnerable population. In here, in her question, she especially mentioned about pregnant women. So that's her query.
See, Khushbu, I think when a healthcare worker speaks, the credibility automatically is bound to be there, because when you speak with knowledge and conviction and experience. So we must make use of this position in the society and as possible, because usually people get information from various sources which are not authenticated. But when you speak, people will definitely listen to you. But for that, it is very important to have access to the right knowledge. Even we need to have right knowledge, and especially the way every day, one day we say this will work, second day we say this will not work. So even we need to be updated with the latest knowledge available. But definitely, I think as a healthcare worker, we should be talking about how can you protect yourself, how can you prevent infection, how can you stay healthy, happy, cheerful. I think we really need to talk about it and demonstrate through our ways of life. If I talk about positivity, I need to actually, that should flow. Then I can, radiate and tell people to be positive and nice. So but definitely healthcare workers have a very, prime role to play in this time. In biological disaster, I think they play a very big role. Sure.
Thank you so much, ma'am. There's another query. I think it's for Dr. Anjali. I think perhaps the participant wants to know how can we mainstream, media professionals at different levels, because the kind of job profiles they're into is quite demanding and hard pressed. So how can we take them on board and provide them the right training when it comes to disaster management, or whatever I could understand from the question?
It's very important. Training of the media professionals. In this scenario, they have to cover a lot of sectors, but disaster is a very critical time, and things kind of unfold very fast and unprecedented also. And so it's essential to give them training. My NGO, we have trained a lot of media professionals, including Doordarshan staff, and even trainees, media trainees, because a lot of media products that are also, formulated, sometimes they are also showing wrong, actions and response to a crisis. And that when the common masses, they're learning, it's a disaster in itself. Because we do learn a lot of our responses from the media, and including the Bollywood and all other cinema and industries in our country. They need to first learn themselves before they show it, to in the popular products. Media training is very important, and we have at our level tried to spread as much awareness as we can by inviting, I've even trained the print media journalists, in this field. And it is even important for them to learn, because they take risks in covering these events. And they do great service to us by doing it, whether it was the earthquake even in Nepal, or name it, any risky disaster also. Now in the last few years, we see media covers it very well. And that gives lot of information to us, that also sensitizes the masses, towards the mishaps and how to be themselves prepared. They are inspired because the media shows it very dramatically and accurately. But as I said, because of that, the journalists, the reporters themselves, they risk their lives. And so a training for them is a must. And I think, again, maybe at the highest level, it should be becoming part of the policy so that the media professionals can benefit from it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, I also feel that there are two more things which can be done. I think one, like in a lot of professional syllabus that civil engineering, they have added a chapter or for a few important aspects of structural engineering for better mitigation. Likewise, maybe in the field of media curriculum or something, if something can be integrated right from the professional when they start their professional careers. And secondly, training, right, like you had mentioned rightly, it definitely is a challenge to bring such people on board, realizing the kind of job profile they have. But I also remember we were working with one of the batches of junior journalists. And, in all states, you have this, at the government levels, you have the PROs, the public relation officers, who are actually the right person to give the correct information. And these media people will they were not even aware that which is the right channel, which is the right link they should be approaching and getting the information. Because I think when something strikes, especially during the disaster times, all the media channels, definitely they are all in that race to cover the incidents quickly, or give that breaking news and get that kind of attention. So I think that linkages between the government and the non-government aspect, or all this mainstreaming is also equally important. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this input. There is a question by a civil defense participant for Indu ma'am. Ma'am, how can one try and become a volunteer for psychosocial counseling? If somebody wants to be a volunteer.
See, I think, of course, if you have a formal training in counseling, for example, at least one should be a postgraduate to talk about mental health. That is one thing. But then I do come across a lot of, short, if somebody has an interest in mental health. So there are a lot of short programs. At least you can deal with non-clinical kind of conditions. For example, if somebody is sad or somebody is feeling low or is anxious, so how can you uplift the spirit and what are the guidelines that you can give? That is something you can learn even through short programs. But if you want to get into an intensive counseling kind of a thing, then I think one should be formally trained, because there could be underlying disorders. There's a possibility that the person has actually clinical depression. So I would not advise to deal with such patient, but then usual day-to-day anxiety or sadness or people who are confused, they can definitely be helped. And let me tell one more interesting thing. Even if you are attentively able to listen to a person, because when you listen with attention, the other person is able to talk about their thoughts and feelings. Even that is therapeutic. So, I mean, that's another good way of, providing therapy to the person. But definitely, in case if you sense any, risk to life or any major mental health issue, please encourage the person to seek help.
To seek help. Correct. Yeah. Rightly said, ma'am. I think ventilation is a very, very important tool to at least start and build that rapport and then trust building and take it forward. Thank you so much, speakers. I think there are no more queries, but we would encourage participants if they want to share any of their experiences with all of us. कोई अपना एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करना चाहता है कोविड के टाइम्स में आपने कम्युनिटी लेवल पे कुछ काम किया है हमारे बीच काफी सारे सिविल डिफेंस होमगार्ड्स बहुत सारे स्टेट्स के भी लोग हैं तो आप अपना एक्सपीरियंस भी शेयर कर सकते हैं आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट आराधना अगर कोई हैंड रेज करता है तो प्लीज उन्हें अनम्यूट कर दीजिए प्लीज फील फ्री टू शेयर योर एक्सपीरियंसेस
We have Sanjit sir with us. Sir, are you audible? Sir, are we audible to you?
I think we also have a question, but I do not know, Indu ma'am, if it's the right time to answer this. As in, it's a question related to, what can be the post-COVID care after recovery. I think we're still going through that phase of, managing the whole situation.
Yeah.
But the question is related to by Rana Bandhuji.
Yeah.
What can be the post-COVID care?
See, in case if it is about the medical condition, I think then the medical personnel will be the right person to tell about the medical management part in case if somebody has some residual symptoms of COVID. And I do come across people who say that for very long time people feel, fatigue and they feel energy less, or they emotionally are also, it's more like, especially if they have been critical. So it's more like near-death experience for many people to have come out of it. But of course, from the dietary point of view, I'd say one should take normal, balanced diet. And more important than that is to stay cheerful and be in the company of people with whom you like and you enjoy. I think that's what basically helps you to recover out of any illness. I mean, I think how I could sail through COVID in the last 15 days is because we three stayed together, we looked after each other, we were helpful. That is what is the energy that we need to create in the family also. This is my understanding from my personal experience that I can share with all of you.
Yes, ma'am. And to add to it, ma'am, we also encourage, we always tell this to all our participants in training, participants generally, that, please make some real bonding, some real friends with whom you can openly, freely share. I think we are all getting into the virtual worlds, and then we have apprehensions of sharing and we think that people would judge us for any such thing. So please just make good, real bondings and friends. Yes, any participant would like to share any experience? Please raise your hand. If no, then maybe we can go in for a formal vote of thanks and close the webinar here. I invite Ms. Aradhna Moktan. She's a young professional with NIDM to propose the vote of thanks. Aradhna?
Yes, ma'am. To the webinar, I would like to address a vote of thanks. Firstly, I would like to thank our Executive Director, Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal of NIDM, for always encouraging us and always guiding us to conduct various webinars. I would also like to thank our esteemed speakers of the session. We had with us our Admiral V.K. Singh, sir, Dr. Indu, and Dr. Anjali for providing us such insightful information and such wonderful presentation. It was such an honor to have such esteemed speakers for the session. I would also like to thank Dr. Sushma Guleria, Assistant Professor from NIDM, as well as Parthivi ma'am from Innovation Curious. Because of them, this webinar has come to limelight. And I would definitely like to thank our participants because they are our key audience, and the participants have been very patient with us. So thank you for the patience. Few instructions before the webinar. The e-certificate will be provided to those participants who successfully fill the feedback form. And once we get the feedback form, then the e-certificate will be provided to them within a period of 30 days. So I guess on this note, shall we end the webinar? Dr. Sushma?
Yes. Thank you so much, Aradhna, and we thank Aradhna also for coordinating it. Thank you all for joining us today on this occasion, and we look forward to working together in the future together, definitely, in some platform or the other. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. God bless you all.